Toronto Maple Leafs fall to the Detroit Red Wings in a pretty brutal game. They pushed hard towards the end, but ultimately they fell short. It was a very disappointing loss on a few fronts. They should have played better. They tied it. The Red Wings come right back out in the third answer, and that ended up being the game winner. Welcome in, everybody. It's just myself today. Darius is unable to make it, and it was a rough game. What's up, Nick, Matthew, Joshua, everybody? Thank you for tuning in again. It's wasn't the best game, quite frankly, from the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll dive into it and, of course, go over, as we usually do, kind of everything that happened in tonight's game. But man, oh man, was it a disappointing one. And, coming into this game, again, it's first night of a back-to-back. There's a lot of things kind of going on. You're hoping that they can take care of business. Darius and I have been talking about how they should really try to win, three of these games. Three of the games. They won the last game today, and then, of course, against the Buffalo Sabres tomorrow, in which Dennis Hildeby is actually starting tomorrow. So you're hoping and thinking coming into the game, hey, maybe this team will be able to actually go out and win this game and actually show that, again, the Leafs in previous years under Sheldon Keefe have played down to their opponents, and that's hopefully hasn't been the case, quite frankly, with Craig Berube so far. It looked like a Sheldon Keefe coached Leafs game from years past. And yeah, just said, Jordan, just as I was mentioning, like, you think about it from the perspective of, like, previous years, they play down to their opponent. They're not super aggressive. There were some players who impressed me tonight, and we'll dive into the box score here in a minute and maybe hopefully get the score impact chart if it comes out. But at the end of the day, it was a very disappointing loss. And it's games like this where you kind of start to get grounded again about this team. Now, ultimately, I think they'll be fine. They are playing a ton. And let's also keep in mind that within this whole, this net 4 games and or 3 games in 4 days, we're dealing with a ton of injuries, specifically regarding their forwards and things like that. So now that everyone's starting to get healthy, hopefully that helps alleviate some of the tiredness, I guess, from the forward group here. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, they need to play better. And I'm curious to see in the chat, did you guys see anybody who stood out to you positively and negatively? I think the Leafs should pick up Brandon Saad. Interesting. So we can dive into the box score a little bit here. And again, some positives. Mitch Marner had a interesting game. Some very good offensive plays. He was all over the puck, all over, especially in the fourth. He was all over the puck there, but he finished with 2 assists. Some defensive breakdowns out of Mitch Marner, which is unfortunate. Austin Matthews got back on the scoreboard, which is nice. And then, of course, we also saw Matthew Nye. So that top line was starting to rock a little bit more than we've seen them. We saw some rough penalties, specifically in the third there. Mitch Marner went from a breakaway to a tripping penalty in the span of about 20 seconds. And that was really the tide changer for the game, because ultimately the Red Wings didn't score on that attempt. That being said, it did burn a lot of the clock. I think, yeah, I agree. I mean, penalties were an issue tonight. Mitch Marner, he had an interesting game. Leafs always play bad against bad teams. Shane, I completely agree. What's up, Shane? Hope you're doing well as well. But yeah, I mean, Matthew Nyes looked pretty good out there. Marner had a lot of offensive chances. He was generating and driving a lot of play, but I still think he defers to Austin Matthews way too much. I think for whatever reason, he always just forwards it to Austin Matthews. And you see him, and I'm curious to see in the chat if you guys agree with me here. Just type yes, or if you don't agree, type no. Do you find that Mitch Marner is a lot less aggressive when he's paired with Austin Matthews? Because we saw him, and he had a great game tonight offensively. 2 assists, he was driving play, 3 shots. But when Austin Matthews was out, he was shooting the puck more. He was way more aggressive. I find he's always looking for Austin Matthews. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because Austin Matthews is and has been one of the best goal scorers in the league. It's more against the Sabres, could be even worse. I think they bounce back. The only issue is, of course, they're playing against with Dennis Hildeby in front of the net, which some people might have confidence, some people might not. But I'm hoping Mitch Marner can kind of get back to some of the form that he was playing with when Austin Matthews wasn't there. And it's a tough ask, obviously, and it's not going to be super easy to just translate that right away, mainly because, of course, you're looking at it from the perspective of he's used to kind of forwarding it off to Austin Matthews, especially like, and don't even get me started with the 6-on-5 with the goalie pull in the end of that last little bit there. They couldn't even get a shot on goal, really. And Morgan Rielly had a pretty rough game, especially at the end. He's whiffing on shots. A lot of questionable things. It wasn't a great game from Morgan Rielly. And quite frankly, Morgan Rielly hasn't really been great as of late at all. We saw Craig Berube towards the end of the game also go with a pairing to try to get some offense going of Connor Timmins and OEL. Connor Timmins was looking pretty good there, generating some play again in the third, specifically late in the third. So it's Yeah, I think the team will be fine. I don't think this is, a sign of anything super concerning. Though again, I know if Darius was here, he would say this is a sign of the Sheldon Keefe team. They're reverting back to their old ways, all these different things. And I think part of that is definitely true. I also think that they're playing so much. A lot of their forwards have been injured. The team has looked definitely fatigued out there. And you look at like the top line again, they paired Marner, Matthews, and Nyes looked good again. He obviously had the big goal to tie it up at the time. William Nylander was really aggressive in the first couple periods, started to kind of slow it down towards the end there. And they took a lot of penalties. I mean, you have Mitch Marner with a penalty, Max Pacioretty with a penalty. You have, I think it was, Connor Timmins as well. So it wasn't a crazy amount of penalties, but the timing of them was pretty rough. And yeah, Scott, there's a lot of people who don't like the pairing of OEL with Morgan Riley. It's, again, they tried to generate some offense late in the third, going with Connor Timmins and OEL, which was very intriguing. And it didn't look terrible, but at the same time, it also didn't look phenomenal, which again, at the end of the day, the offense staggered. It staggered a little bit, which is going to happen, especially when you're playing this much. And again, they're playing a ton of games in December. They're halfway through the month now. They're playing, especially, and again, they aren't really, I don't think they played terrible over the past few games, but tonight it was definitely a bit of a letdown. I mean, they're not scoring a lot. And you think about even Max Domi tonight. Nick Robertson obviously got scratched. Max Domi, again, held pointless. He saw a little bit of time in the power play. Obviously, 43 seconds there on the power play. So it's like he hasn't had a point since, I believe, October, and he hasn't obviously had a goal. So I don't know if the Max Domi, I don't know what's going on with him. He obviously signed that 3-year deal in the offseason. Things are a little bit concerning if you're a if you're a Leafs fan in that regard, because, I mean, at this point, it's a little bit concerning. If Toronto won against bad teams, they would be leading the league. Yeah, I mean, they take care of business most of the time against the good teams, which is why it's so interesting to me that they, at times, struggle against a lot of the bad teams. And, I mean, tonight was a perfect and prime example of that. They struggled against the Red Wings. They almost can't, again, we know Stan Anthony Stolarz is day-to-day, all these different things, but they almost got the win again tonight. And we've seen them even in the games. What's up, John and Vendetti? Even in the games where they won against some of these bad teams, they were barely scraping by, which again lends credit to the fact of, hey, things are getting a little bit scary at times. They haven't had a phenomenal offensive game in a while, and that's a little bit concerning as of course, as a fan. Other than Robertson, he'd be at the top of the list. I just don't know if they're going to trade Domi. I can't see a word they do. It's the first year of a 3-year extension. Contract doesn't look like it's aging phenomenally so far, but again, it's super early. He was dealing with injuries. He obviously, players are very heavily routine oriented. So I'm going to give Max Domi, of course, the benefit of the doubt for now. The fourth line was noticeable tonight. Not much to show for it, but they had a lot of offensive zone time. Jordan, I agree. And also towards the end, there was 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes left in the game, and Craig Berube put out the fourth line. So clearly he had a lot of trust in it. I saw some Leafs fans were upset about that, but they put out the fourth line, which is an interesting call. Again, Steven Lorentz, Connor Dewar. Connor Dewar was great in the PK tonight. I like close games. They need to win them. It is nice having close games. Should Toronto make a trade? I think they definitely will. I still think they need some sort of addition to the offense. Now, whether or not, and I'm curious to see in the chat, I agree, Shane. It's going to be the unfortunate reality of it is that that's what happens. I'm curious to see in the chat here, how did you guys find Fraser Minten tonight? So he played 10 minutes, fairly limited ice time. It wasn't on the power play or anything like that. What's up, Marshall? Yeah, Dewar looked phenomenal. We'll get into that here in a little bit. I'm also interested to see the impact scorecards as well. But what were your guys' thoughts on Minten tonight? Ignore the screenshots there. What were your thoughts on Fraser Minten tonight? Because it was an intriguing one. And again, he's the guy to watch. And again, we'll see him tomorrow. We'll probably, I assume, unless he gets, taken out in exchange for, obviously Bobby McMahon was back tonight, making his return as well. He had 5 shots on goal, and that was the same trend he had before he got taken out because of his injury, shooting a ton of shots. And they obviously went back to that second line. Pacioretty, Minten was invisible. Minten was pretty invisible. Didn't really realize he was on the ice. And that's the thing I was going to bring up here. Like, I didn't think he had a horrible game per se. It almost reminded me of a Nick Robertson game to a degree, if you guys understand what I mean by that, where you don't really see, like, if you're not, usually with Fraser Minten, though, if he has a bad game, he's still throwing his body, he's playing good defensively, whereas with Nick Robertson, if he has a bad offensive game, you're kind of, you're not going to see him. Minton was pretty invisible. There was a couple times I noticed a bit of physicality there, but I mean, ultimately, he needs to be better. It's not that he even needs, he's still a young player. And I think he has enough upside. And yeah, rather Reeves. And that's the other side of things. They have so many players now that can replace Fraser Minton. Now, not necessarily at the center, because obviously Ron Reeves isn't playing center, but they have a lot of guys. I wonder if Fraser Minton's time is going to dwindle down. Now, again, this is just one game. He's played really solid over the past, since he's gotten called up. And that's the question, Hugh. What happens when Kemp and Yarncroc are healthy? Also, if you're enjoying the stream, make sure to hit that like button. Try to get to 20 likes. I know the Leafs lost. It's a Saturday night, but we're still live here for you as well. We're live for every single game, and even the bad ones like this. But shout out to everybody in here. I really do appreciate it. What happens when Kemp and Yarncroc is healthy? So I think once Kemp and Yarncroc are healthy, I think Yarncroc's a ways away. David Kemp's coming back soon. And I want to ask you guys, like I was talking, me and Darius obviously talked about it in the video today. I do think Nick Robertson is going to get traded. I think Nick Robertson is going to get traded. But even just looking at it from a Dewar to David Kemp front, like, I don't know if they can take like David. Well, I'd love to see how David Kemp is playing because Connor Dewar is playing really good. And if you maybe go with the line of Connor Dewar on the wing with, it would be interesting though. You have to kind of see. But Connor Dewar on the wing with Kemp at center, and then of course Steven Lorentz on the other wing. I don't hate that fourth line. And then Pontus Holmberg going out. And I haven't been a huge fan of Pontus this season. What's up, Jose? It was a very rough game. It was a very rough game. And I agree. Marner needs to be more aggressive. If you, what's up, Dan D? Earlier in the stream, I was saying it. Marner is way too passive when he's with Matthews. He's always looking to defer and pass the puck. Keep Minton, trade Holmberg. I'm kind of there as well. But there's so many players who didn't really perform over the past few days, specifically tonight. Max Domi. I mean, I could go through the list. Morgan Riley has been a shell of what I expected from him at this point. There's a lot of different things. I think Kemp will get traded. That is also possible. I do ultimately think Nick Robertson is going to ask for a trade or at the very least request a, I mean, he already asked for a trade in the offseason. So I think if Dewar could score, it'd be basically unstoppable. Yeah, but I mean, he's more of a penalty kill specialist. He's been playing center, doing a fairly decent job at it. I'm liking the way he's playing, and you notice him out there. And again, he's not going to be getting a ton of ice time, 10 to 12 minutes. Marner isn't the problem. Playing him with Matthews is completely agree. I completely agree. And I've been saying this. We've been preaching it on the videos, on the streams. Split up Matthews and Marner. Now, I understand they want to put Tavares, Patches, and Nylander together on the second line because of the success that it had earlier in the season before Patches got hurt. Split them up. And at this point, just split off. Now, whether you want to put Nylander alongside Matthews and Nyes is probably what I would do, and then put Marner down in the second line. And then you have Patches, Tavares, Marner. You obviously have that top line, and then you go from there. The third line tonight was also fairly invisible. You saw, I would say Bobby McMahon had a pretty good return. He had 5 shots on goal. I liked the way he looked out there. But other than that, it was looking a little bit rough. Pontus Holmberg, again, I think at this point, there's too many players now, quite frankly, especially once David Kemp returns, which is going to be very shortly. It's going to be very shortly. And I'm curious, what would you guys do when you get David Kemp back? Would you keep Connor? Type yes or no. Would you guys want to see a line of Connor Dewar, David Kemp, and Steven Lorentz? Because if you're going based off the players who have played the best, then that would be the logical option. Would be, of course, those guys. But I don't know exactly how their kind of play styles complement each other because Dewar and Kemp do similar things. They're both good in the PK. I mean, both of them are PK specialists to a degree, two-way fourth liners. So I'm curious to see what you all think about that. I'm also going to look for the impact scorecard here. I just don't know if, like, obviously Pontus provides a bit more offensive upside, but I don't know if I need that. We might have it here, folks. We might have it. We do have the impact scorecard, so I will get that up for you right now. Yes, no. Nylander had a garbage game tonight. Too many of those for 11.5. Yeah, I think he's been fairly decent, though. I'm going to give him a pass tonight. All right, I have the impact scorecard. And ladies and gentlemen, take a guess in the chat with Dewar. Kemp becomes expendable. I agree. I think they're going to move one of them, but the thing is, David Kemp's contract is not phenomenal. This is interesting to me. This is very interesting. Try to guess right now, leave in the chat. Who do you think the top 3, starting with, so 1, 2, and 3. Who do you think your 1, 2, and 3 are for positive impact tonight? Lines up pretty well. That'll be my hint. It lines up pretty well with what the eye test was saying to a degree, which is actually hilarious the way that the top 3 are. It's pretty funny. And there's a lot of negatives tonight. There is a lot of negatives. So I'm very curious to see if you guys can guess this in the chat. But Holmberg was garbage. Wasn't great tonight. He wasn't great. And again, just not much offensive impact at all. Marner 1. Okay. Marner. Okay, I'll show you guys in 1 second here. Again, here's a quick look at the box score in case you did miss the game. Marner and the rest sucked. I would say Austin Matthews had a pretty good game. Some sloppy plays, but I think he played a fine game. There's still some work to be done here. Tanev good. All right, let's have a look. So we're gonna do this the old-fashioned way. I'm just gonna drag it here. And I'll make it bigger for you guys. I know you guys, is it better if we do it like this for future streams? Can you guys type yes? Can you guys see the scorecard better when we do it like this? I'll probably make it the full screen. I know you guys can't see my face, but so you have Marner number 1, Matthews number 2, and Nyes number 3. You have the entire top line as your you have the entire top line as your 1, 2, and 3. And Riley is 4th. I didn't love the way he played, but I guess sometimes the advanced analytics are there. Max Pacioretty at the bottom, along with Fraser Minton and Max Domi. I don't know about you guys. I didn't think Max Pacioretty had a horrible game. He was at least driving play to a degree. He was getting in front of the net. He was actually going to the net, which is something that I would like to see. Actually going to the net. So, again, Pacioretty last. Fraser Minton second last, which makes sense for Fraser Minton. Pretty invisible tonight. No offensive impact at all. Max Domi, again, rough game for him. You have Simon Benoit. Didn't look great either. I think John Tavares played eh. And then Steven Lawrence, of course, always in the middle there. But it's Mitch Marner. It makes sense. It's an interesting one. I don't like the chart. It's not like a be-all, end-all chart. But again, it gives a decent example of kind of how things were going there. But I think it's a fairly accurate here. I didn't love the way Nylander played. A lot of defensive miscues. But, I mean, Mitch Marner is clearly the best player on the ice. But I still think he needs to be more aggressive. Like, he hasn't been aggressive this year at all. Or not this year, since Matthews has returned. We see him sometimes. He obviously got the breakaway tonight and they got a penalty right after. And I do ultimately think that he really wants to win. You saw him after the penalty show animation. You saw once Detroit scored the empty net goal, how they zoomed in on Marner. You could see how mad he was and how upset and pissed he was that they lost that game. So it's interesting. I think we should all be happy to say we don't need a D-man or goalie right now. Yeah, I mean, the defense looks good. Connor Timmins looks really good. I'm curious to see where he is on this chart. He's towards the middle, which makes some sense. OEL had a really good game as well, especially offensively, which is funny, but that's kind of what he is. And again, the pairing of Connor Timmins and OEL was certainly intriguing, to say the least. Breakup Marner and Matthews, completely agree. And I'm going to keep harping on that until Craig Berube does it, which I'm hoping he does at some point. But again, you never really know, because we saw it. I think they really want to give the second line a chance of Pacioretty, Nylander, and Tavares once again because of how good they were earlier in the season. But you look at that line, and most of them towards the bottom. Most of them towards the bottom. Forwards are easier to get. Yeah. And kind of going back to the other question, like, how did Connor Dewar look in this chart? Towards the top. And again, for a fourth liner who barely played, it is what it is. I think they did have a ton of chances. Their 6-on-5 at the end was terrible. They didn't even get like any structure. They barely got any shots on net. So I didn't love that. They waited a while to pull Joseph Woll, but you didn't really have an opportunity to anyways. So they weren't able to get set in the zone. So it took them to like less than 2 minutes left to actually give the guys a chance. Also, if you're in here, can you hit the like button? We're at 7. We all like seeing numbers go up. Let's try to get to 20 likes before we wrap up. 20 likes. I know it's a Saturday night. The stream is it's going to be a shorter one, of course, but a pretty rough loss here, but you guys could do that for me. Toronto misses on too many good chances. It's possible. They've been playing like fine as of late. I do think there is some work that needs to be done. They need to continue to, of course, I'm happy Dubas is gone. That's fair. I mean, I think a lot of people are. Ultimately. Thank you, Maya. It's interesting. And I guess it might be a good time to start get into the 3 stars. Nick saying Marner, Nyes, and Tanev. Honestly, we'll give our 3 stars here in a minute. I wouldn't disagree with that chart there either. Nick, I think it's a fine one. I think it's a fine one. All right, let's go ahead and give our 3 stars. So leave in the chat who your 3 stars would be. Thank you guys for getting 16 likes. We are 4 away from 20. Type in the chat who your 3 stars are. This is a very interesting one. It's a very interesting one. I'm very curious to see what you guys think about this right now. I'm going to start with my number 3 star of the night, and I'm going to go ahead and give it to Matthew Nyes. He's continued to play really well all season. He had a big goal that ultimately tied the game, which right after they gave up a goal. I'm going to go with Matthew Nyes. He had a really good game to me. He's finally figuring out how to use his body more and more, and I really liked what he did tonight. So Matthew Nyes is my 3rd star. And what do they always lose to teams that should be beating? Mendy, that is the Leafs effect. That is the Toronto Maple Leafs effect. Something we've gotten used to prominently on over the years. Usually under Keefe, same thing to a degree for now under Craig Berube, which is kind of silly, but it is what it is. So my 3rd star is going to go to, of course, like I just mentioned, Matthew Nyes. My 2nd star of the night is going to be Connor Dewar. He didn't score. He was great in the PK. He was very solid defensively. And he looked very solid. And he was noticeable out there. And for a guy in the 4th line, I'm going to give it to Connor Dewar. There's not many games where I'm going to have the opportunity to give it to Connor Dewar. So I'm going to give him the 2nd star. Honorable mention, of course, to Austin Matthews, though I still think he could have had a better game. And definitely an honorable mention to Chris Tanev as well. Probably should be my number 2 or 3 star, but I want to give it to Connor Dewar. And of course, the number 1 star of the night was Mitch Marner, driving play. I mean, playing really well. Joseph Wall had a fine game as well, give up 3 goals. There's a lot of different people who honestly you could give the stars to, but that's mainly because of how bad the team was offensively, quite frankly. They're pretty good defensively, though. Matthews was not Matthews, he's in the cabinet. So I'm going to go with those are my 3 stars. Again, honorable mentions to Chris Tanev. Honorable mention to, I'm going to give it to Austin Matthews. He obviously had a goal. And Jake McCabe as well, got on the board. I didn't love Morgan Rielly's game tonight, despite him being on the impact score chart there. I didn't love his game tonight, but I do ultimately think that he'll be fine. I'm hoping that this team will continue to and hopefully get back into the grind here. Marner was the only top player. I would tend to agree. I think Matthew Nyes played really well as well, though. I think he played well. Marner looked like the best player. He honestly has most of the year. He's looked like the Leafs best player almost every game this year, which is intriguing. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I do think they'll be good. It's perfectly fine. They moved it 18, 10, and 2 now. Big game tomorrow, of course. Darius will be back for that one as well against the Buffalo Sabres. Any final thoughts in the chat, everybody? Again, a bit of a shorter stream here. It's late Saturday. The Leafs lost. It's a little bit unfortunate. Yeah, Matthews was an offside, exactly. It was a bit unfortunate, but at the end of the day, we're going to be going live through every game, wins or losses. Some of them are going to sting like this one. Some of them are going to be less entertaining. It wasn't a super entertaining game till the end. It was a very good game. For the last 5-10 minutes, intense. Thought Mitch Marner was going to score a 5-hole there on the breakaway, but ultimately it didn't get done. But any final thoughts from everybody in the chat? Again, thank you all for tuning in. Darius will be back in tomorrow. Maybe I'm unlucky. The night I'm here solo, they lose. No worries, Maya. Bye, Darius. I'm Nick, but shout out to you as well. Just got to remember that teams go through ups and downs. Exactly, Jordan. And we've been through this. We've been going live after every game. They've lost a couple games in a row multiple times. And they always bounce back every single time. So I have no doubt that this is going to be, I don't think this is going to be any different. I think they're going to bounce back. They had a lot of chances. Some of them didn't go their way. They weren't able to score some goals. It is what it is. And at the end of the day, it's no worries, Mendy. It's going to be an interesting one. But at the end of the day, folks, we are going to be back tomorrow. We'll have a video in the afternoon. If you want more Leafs content, we had a video earlier today. Again, we go live after every single game, and we make videos every single day. So we'll have a video for you all tomorrow afternoon. It's going to be a good one with Darius, of course. So make sure you tune into that one. Have a great, safe Saturday night, everybody. And again, the Leafs lost, but there's going to be tons of those throughout the season. It's about how the Leafs bounce back, and I think they're going to bounce back in a big way tomorrow, and it's going to be an interesting game with Dennis Hill to be going between the pipes, so make sure you tune into the stream following the game tomorrow and the video as well tomorrow. But thank you guys for watching, and thank you guys for tuning in. Your report was great. Like usual, we will see you all in tomorrow's video. Take it easy.
Leafs Digest, your daily dose of gold. Stories of the bold where legends untold. From first pop drop to the season's full. Tune in and watch the drama unfold.